Hello, hello! Good evening. We haven't done a fireplace video in a minute, so
Yeah.
we're here in front of the lovely fireplace today. I hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. It is Self-Healing Saturday, so we wanted to talk tonight about something that is so important really it's important for everything, but it's especially important when you are in the process of healing. So a lot of people are in the self-healing support group because you're trying to heal from something, or you had a diagnosis and you are experiencing symptoms and you've got things going on in your body. Acceptance is such a powerful tool, and we'll define acceptance in a little bit, but your ability to be where you are and let it be okay that you are where you are on the way to where you want to go is so important, because so much of our pain, so much of the suffering that we experience as a result of our pain or whatever we have going on is a result of telling ourselves a story, of telling ourselves that this is not okay, that things are the way they are right now, and that resistance holds you in a place where it really can prevent you from moving forward in your healing process if you are not accepting where you are in this moment. And so we wanted to talk about different ways to approach where you are right now, whether it's with your health, whether it's with a relationship, a money situation. Really, you can apply this principle to anything in your life that you want to see change. You see something that is a way that you do not want it to be. How do you approach things like that? Do you fight against it? Do you try to get rid of it? Or is there a better way to approach things that aren't how you want them to be?
Yeah. So I think of acceptance really as a skill. And not necessarily because it is. I'm not saying it is that way, but I found it really useful to relate to it in that way. Am I allowed to do an exercise analogy in this one?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
So this is, I was thinking in terms of exercise because it makes sense to me in a specific way, because I do a lot of that myself, and so it helps me to relate to it, right? Because I think about doing different like athletic things, whether it's like, even like running, working out. It's really a skill, right? It's like if you know how to do a certain thing. Like I used to think I hated running. And the truth was that I just wasn't very good at it, right? I hadn't done the right stretches, my technique wasn't really quite right, my tissues weren't accustomed to it, and so it was a very difficult experience because I was not doing it properly. And so I think of acceptance as being like a skill. And the thing is, you want to practice a skill at the level that's appropriate for you. Now, so for example, let's say that I'm learning an exercise. What's something people are familiar with, like a squat, for example. I've never done a squat before, right? I'm unfamiliar with that, and so I need to get my technique down, right? And if I start practicing my squatting technique with 700 pounds, that's pretty tough, right? I almost can't even focus on the skill nuances of what I'm trying to do, because I'm so oppressed by the weight of what I'm trying to use. And I think that when it comes to like people, if you're having like really extreme health challenges, that's like trying to learn how to squat using 700 pounds. It's like, this is an overwhelming invitation to me to resist an emotion, and you're asking me to accept that. You don't know what it's like and all these different things. And so when it comes to initially practicing the skill of, and the other thing about this too is that we're talking about like conscious and deliberate acceptance. We all accept things to one degree or another. To the degree that we aren't suffering in our life, to the degree that we're feeling good or okay or better than okay in a given moment in time, we are, by definition, accepting that our reality is as it is, right? We don't begin to suffer until we find, the kitchen is dirty. So-and-so didn't do this thing. There's my body is hurting again, or I'm getting signs that, something's going wrong with me. And then we start resisting that stuff. Then we start suffering. And so acceptance really is kind of the default mode for most of our life. And what we're talking about here is really like deliberate and conscious acceptance. We're talking about when life experience, your body, your finances, your spouse, your situation, something about what it is like to be you, sends you a very compelling invitation to do that which doesn't serve you, to emotionally resist the fact that some person, some situation, some circumstance is as it or they are at a given moment in time. In that moment, when your default reaction would be to emotionally resist the fact that that thing is so, if you have practiced the skill of conscious acceptance, deliberate acceptance as a strategy for change, as an acceptance for changing reality rather than coping with it, you experience yourself as that option. You experience yourself as saying, this is a compelling invitation for me to resist. And that means not that I must resist. that means that I get to make a choice about whether and to what extent I'm going to do what serves me here. So when you're practicing the skill of this kind of conscious acceptance, you might want to start with things that are, a little bit easier. If you just kind of get like a lot of pushback psychically, or a lot of like, I don't even see how what they're talking about could apply to this. I feel like maybe my life is in danger. I feel like the quality of my life anyway is in danger. I'm very afraid because of this is like, it's close to home, right? It is home, it's your body. And so if you're struggling with health stuff and it's a little too heavy of a lift, begin practicing deliberate acceptance in other areas of your life. Maybe, and that's one thing I found too, is that no matter how kind of dire a person's situation tends to be or seems to be, they very often, and this is a funny thing with me too, if I feel like a lot of stuff's going wrong in my life, I still have time to resist and suffer over little trifling things that don't matter, right? Small things that I could just let be okay. I don't always have enough energy to do what makes me feel good, but I've always got enough energy to do what makes me feel bad, right? To resist those things if I'm not really choosing consciously. So conscious acceptance, and we'll talk more about exactly what that means, is a skill that carries over. As you get better and better at doing that, as you get better and better at feeling the opportunity to resist, feeling the opportunity to feel bad, feeling the opportunity to stand in opposition to some fact of the matter, some aspect of what is at a given moment in time, and you say, do I want to do that? Is doing that going to improve what it's like to be me? Is doing that going to introduce suffering into my life? Is doing that going to interfere with my ability to create the changes that I want? Yeah, resisting is going to interfere with all that stuff, and it's going to make me feel bad, so I'm going to choose not to do it. That's a successful rep. That's a successful application. You got a little bit better at deliberate acceptance, and that skill over time will generalize. There's this point where you get good at accepting small stuff, but the big stuff, it just pushes you right out of bounds. I get good at squatting 100 pounds, but if you load up 125 or 150, that technique goes away, right? It collapses. I lose it. But there's a certain point when I get so good, and I've done it so many times, that it doesn't matter how big the lift is. It doesn't matter how dire the life circumstance is. I have gotten so good at deliberate acceptance. I have gotten so good at being confronted with an opportunity to resist my own experience in a moment in time, to go unconscious, to create suffering for myself. And I've chosen not to do that so many times that it just becomes second nature for me. And I just do it, and I don't even stop to think, this is something that happens. I think you've had this happen, and I know that I've had this happen too. People are almost incredulous. Something will happen in your life, you'll get some news or something like that. I remember at various points in my past, I had like a lot of student loan debt, and people in my family who were kind of vaguely aware of it. They didn't know exactly, but they knew that it was a lot. They were incredulous that I was as unperturbed as I was. It was almost as if they felt I should be resisting and suffering in that moment, standing in the kitchen at Thanksgiving, about the fact that I had these loans that I had to pay back, right? And it's an interesting thing. You get to the point, though, where none of this stuff bothers you, because being bothered doesn't help you create the changes that you're capable of creating. And there's that critical point of like universal generalization. When you recognize, it doesn't matter what the circumstance is, it's never useful to resist it. And you've gotten so good at not resisting precisely because it's not useful to do so, that it's just your second nature. And then all of a sudden, really big stuff happens. Life-threatening things can happen, right? Really, like what for most people would be catastrophic things happen. And you're able to respond in a resourceful way. And really what you find when you start doing that is that very often it was your reaction and the subsequent experience that you created through emotional resistance that was really catastrophic. It wasn't really the thing that happened. The thing that happened, even if it was really huge, it just was what it was. So much of the negativity, so much of the suffering, it really was your experience that you were creating unconsciously and unintentionally with all this resistance that you didn't even know was there.
Yeah, like just the awareness that you don't have to experience things the same way that you always have. And that to me, when I was first kind of, was learning this idea that suffering really comes from me resisting, from me saying this is not okay, this should be other than it is, something is wrong right now, and I don't want it to be that way. Even with physical pain, I've had, it was pretty severe physical pain that I've had, that when I started changing the way that I thought about it, that there was actually a feeling difference in my body when I stopped resisting it, when I stopped saying, this is bad, this is terrible, this is awful, this should stop, this shouldn't be this way. When you start to experience it in a different way and really kind of observing what it's like. What is it like to have pain? And really what is the meaning of pain? And that's the really awesome thing about German New Medicine, is that it allows you to understand your pain in a new and different way. So pain is a feedback mechanism. Pain is information that you need from your body. If you step on a nail, you have pain because there was something there that if you continue down that path of stepping on the nail, you're going to damage your tissues even further. So the pain is there so that you change your behavior. So you change something that you're doing. Pain is there as a warning sign. Pain is there to get you out of a bad situation. But if you're experiencing pain and you didn't just sprain your ankle, you didn't just step on something, if you've got pain in your body, we've been so conditioned to believe that pain is a bad thing, that pain means now I need to go to the doctor, now I need to get checked out, I'm nervous, this area that normally isn't hurting, I didn't injure it, but now there's pain there. The mystery around, mysterious pains, and I'm very familiar with that because working in a chiropractic office for many years, people come in with pain and it's like, please tell me that everything's okay. That's really what people want more than anything, is they want someone to tell them that what they're experiencing isn't worse than they think that it is, because we tend to jump to the worst possible conclusion. Oh, this kind of pain, you end up on WebMD all night and you all of a sudden think that you've got something really bad, and then you go to the doctor and maybe they do tell you that you have something that most medical world thinks is really bad, and then what happens? Then you're scared and you're still experiencing this pain, and you're scared and you're panicking and you're telling yourself this is not okay, and so you're just layering conflict on top of conflict on top of conflict. And when you learn GNM and when you know the 5 biological laws, you know that pain, when I have pain in my body now, it's like, okay, ooh, what is this? Why is this happening? And then it's like, okay, oh, that's right. I have an awareness that I didn't have before. I have knowledge, I have information that I didn't have access to before. I now know that pain, in absence of obvious injury, pain is a sign of healing. Pain happens when tissues are being stretched, when there's swelling, and swelling happens when there's a repair process going on. And so, even if you don't know exactly what it is, if you can't really pinpoint don't even know really what tissue it is that's involved, that pain means healing. You know that inflammation means healing. You know that when there's something swollen, that means that you must have had a conflict that caused that tissue to undergo some type of adaptive process. And so after it's done adapting, it starts healing. And so that story, now that we have that story to tell ourselves that, when something is painful in my body, that is a sign that there is healing. What a hopeful message. What a way to set your mind at ease. How much easier is it to accept a painful process if you know that there's an end point? How much easier is it to accept, extreme pain? The thing is people, we have extreme pain and we imagine that it's going to go on forever, or that's going to, kill us. And so those things, when we tell ourselves those stories, when we have that image in our mind, it's scary. And so we end up resisting the pain itself, which does not allow for the healing to progress. And so again, you can have additional conflicts when you are panicking, when you're freaking out, when you are resisting the fact that things are the way that they are. And so that knowledge. So first, you become aware of GNM. You become aware that your body and what we thought was going on with cancer cells, what we thought was going on with certain symptoms, really it's a sign that the body knows exactly what it's doing, that there's a process going on that I was unaware of, and my ability to accept this and accept the information and watch it at work in my body, and not even, just, that's the thing that I love about GNM, is you prove it to yourself. You get to see and watch it in action. And so that whole process is so powerful, to observe yourself having pain, having a realization, oh, I know what this pain means, and the ability to say, I can accept this because I know that this is already in the process of changing. By the time my brain is aware that there's a sensation of pain, so much healing has already gone on. That's the amazing thing, is you don't even know how much healing has already taken place by the time that you start experiencing pain, because this, at the cellular level, cells are very small and it takes time for, you know, fluid to go to the area, and so your body's already been in the healing process for some time by the time you even realize that it's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's a different meaning, right? And that's that thing, and that's just a new option. And there's an interesting thing, and this is something too. So everyone, you know, I'm thinking of my old self who would have said, you know, what a bunch of bullshit this is. You know, pain is pain and it's awful, and you're likely not feeling, you know, be feeling it now, right? I mean, that's like honestly like how I would have felt. And it was because we have this tendency to kind of be attached to the experiences that we create by default. I've always experienced rush hour traffic in this way. And so to consider or ponder or think about or even hear about or to observe in another person some other experience, I'm skeptical of it. It seems phony. It seems fake. You know what I'm saying? It seems inauthentic. It seems like there's just something like, I mean, I don't believe that is even a possible experience. And if it's it's a diluted experience. And I think the thing to recognize is that for anything that's going on in your life, for any sensation that can be present in your, it's not that you should never really be doing anything other than you are. I mean, as far as I can tell. But, you know, as this stuff is kind of introduced into your mind and you bring that into the ecology of your experience, all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, what can I do with that? Then perhaps you'll use it to create a different experience, and that'll be great. But there's this tendency to assume that the way that we've experienced things up until this point, whether it's physical pain or whether it's emotional pain or whatever, that's the only way to experience that. And for anything that you've had, for any physical sensation in your body, your experience has been what it has been up until this point. And that's real, and it's valid, and it's okay. But it doesn't mean that other experiences weren't possible. And it doesn't mean that other experiences aren't possible now. And it doesn't mean that other experiences consciously created wouldn't be conducive to kind of resolving whatever's going on that's giving rise to the sensation in the first place. And that was, I don't know if that was in an email that I sent out or if it's something I'm reading right now or writing right now, but there's a distinction between physical sensation and emotional suffering. And like the sensation of pain versus suffering over that pain. So the pain happens when the injury occurs, or the pain happens when the remodeling process is going on. The pain happens when the body is doing something that communicates to the nervous system. There's something going on here, right? There's some fluid buildup that's happening, or there's something, you know, growing or being repaired, and there's nerves in that area. And all that pain is just nerves detecting stuff. Like as a human being, we feel it as, oh my God, this is something terrible, right? But there's a level of our anatomy which is just information. It's just the body saying, hey, something's touching me. That's all that is. And that's
Don't move around too much.
That's a funny thing.
You need to rest. Every time I move, it hurts.
You're interfering.
It's like, don't move. That's what this is for. Is just telling you to not move.
But it's a funny thing for me to be laying there in pain, and I'm like as pitiful as can be. Like if I've hurt myself, because I love to move around and stuff like that, and so I'm really good at being a sad injured, you know. But when you feel that feeling, and that feeling is happening, like I've had it hurts you to think about it, like a couple of instances of like chopping vegetables really quick, and like I just chop off like a whole hunk of my finger, like I actually have a couple of places where you can see
we were looking at the scars the other day.
Like it's really weird in those moments to stop and say, this is information. I mean, first I go, shit, you know what I mean, and I put something on it, but then as I'm standing there, I dance around for a minute, and then I get to a point where I'm like, isn't it weird that there's a level at which this is just information? And isn't it interesting that like my experience of this as an idiot who just almost cut his finger off is one experience, but then there's another experience which is, well, yeah, you're an idiot that cut your finger off, but you've also got enough awareness to recognize that it's just information. And there's all these different things that you can do. It's kind of funny, but there are also times when, like especially with chronic pain, you know, where you start noticing living with chronic pain is a lot like living with a chronic pain in the ass, a person. And I think there's a reason we call them, oh, you know, he's a pain in the ass. It's like, you know, pain in your hip, a pain in your body that just won't go away. They're just always that way. I think there's something to that. And what happens is that when you start looking at your relationship to another person that's kind of chronically unpleasant, you know, to you, or you start looking at movement and feeling things in your body that are chronically kind of an encumbrance to you, you find that there's the feeling, there's the thing, there's the reality of what's going on, But then there's your experience of it. And what's really interesting and enlightening is to notice how there are things that you were doing, or say there's things that I am doing anyway. There's ways in which I'm relating to whatever this pain is, whether it's a person or something in my body, that is informing what the quality and the character of my experience is. And when I feel that, I say to myself, oh man, it hurts again. That means it's not getting better. That means this is never going to get better. You start telling yourself some kind of a story. This means I can't do the things that I want to do. Doesn't mean it's wrong to say those things to you. It doesn't even necessarily mean that those things are definitely not true. It just means that saying those things is creating an experience. There's no question that that's the case, right? And, that's the thing I like to do too, is like go to the worst case scenario. Let's say that you were living with some kind of physical pain that's never going to fully go away. The question is, does your experience better? Do you enjoy it more? Having a sensation that's never going to fully go away and telling yourself a story every single day that says this is never going to go away, it's never going to go away, it's never going to go away. Or getting up and saying, oh, it's still there. Okay, what else is going on? Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's still there. You don't know when it's going to get better. You don't know. And you don't know that it's not going to get better. You can't know that stuff, right? Weird, anomalous things happen all the time. Miracles happen all the time. Our understanding of things happen all the time. And if I had to, if there were a kind of state of mind that would be maximally conducive to you kind of allowing the biological program to run its course, to get to a place where pain was resolved, you know what I'm saying? Where so that your body does its thing, finishes up so that you can get back to feeling good. I think that the state of mind that would be maximally conducive to that would be one in which you were assigning resourceful meanings to the fact that you were feeling the way that you were. If you would allow yourself to make sense out of not emotionally resisting and suffering over, because that suffering that we create in ourselves when we feel a sensation and we say, oh God, that's bad, that's wrong, I shouldn't be feeling that, that's a problem, this body's not working right, I'm effed, my whole life is over, I should be better by now, all this stuff. You create that, you make a case for resisting, you then resist, you then experience suffering. And suffering, suffering's different than pain. Suffering is that existential angst. It's that, like, something is wrong here and I don't know what to do about it, so I'm going to clench everything down. Because more tension always helps you feel better, right? When you're in pain, the best thing you can do is really tense. But that's what we do when we're not paying attention to what we're doing. If you can figure out how not to do that, you maximize your chances of alleviating that sensation. Now, the interesting thing is, even if that sensation is never going to go away, the best way to improve your experience of it, right? We don't want to, if we're having kind of a noxious or an unpleasant physical sensation, say I've injured my knee, something like that. Or let's say they've got some kind of what's like a good thing, a good example, something that like is a biological program, but that's painful as it's concluding.
Sciatica.
Okay.
A good example of this week.
Yeah, the people who have had this, it's like you if you ever wonder where the center of the universe is, it is in your hip and the back of your leg when you have sciatica, right? There's your focused attention is just there. There's nothing else in the world for you then. Let's say that's going to be lingering around for a while. How you relate to that is going to have a lot to do with what your experience of it is. And I love situations where it's not like, well, gosh, okay, so let's say I've got some kind of chronic pain situation. So I'm sitting back and I'm saying, am I one of the people for whom this can get better, or am I one of the people in the group that it's never going to get better for? Well, I don't know. So I don't know if I should emotionally resist or not. Well, that's actually not true, because I love situations in which it doesn't matter what the reality is outside of you. The course of action, mentally, emotionally, behaviorally, is the same. Because if we can make a case and make sense out of you responding resourcefully, regardless of what the unknown factors are. Because I know a lot of people, and this is a pattern that I've noticed, is that we get a good plan down, and then they say, oh, but what about this? What if this is true? What about this isn't true? And if we can make it so that what you do is resourceful, regardless of either of those things, you don't doubt yourself, you don't undercut yourself, you don't undermine yourself, you don't talk yourself out of doing that which would serve you. And when you don't do that anymore, you do that which would serve you. And creating that experience, and this is the thing too, like, there's reality, there's your health situation, there's your prognosis, there's what's going on in your tissues, and then there's your experience of it. And we want to change reality, right? Because if you're in pain, there's things going on that, even if they're supposed to be going on, even if they're doing it for a reason, we want to get that, let's wrap it up here. Do you know what I'm saying? I appreciate this renovation, but let's finish up so we can get back to normal business. Your experience of that stuff is a part of reality. Do you see what I'm saying? Like we tend to forget that we ourselves are a part of the reality that we're experiencing. And when you want to change reality, when you want to change what it feels like to be in this body, you can't always just snap your fingers and change what it feels like, to be in this body, to have these knees, to have these hips, to have this brain and body and stomach and all that stuff. What you can change, though, is you can change your experience of having this body, by changing the way you think about it, by changing the meanings that you assign, by changing the stories that you tell yourself. And if you can change your experience even slightly, you've begun to change reality, right? Because your experience is a part of, not apart from, reality. And if you recognize the fact that changing your experience is not some kind of cop-out. It's not some kind of like, oh, I give up, I'm not going to be able to feel better, so I'm just going to pretend, I'm going to delude myself and create a different experience. It's like, no, you're a part of this whole thing. There is an ecology of existence here, and it's very often the case that you changing your experience of a hurting feeling is a part of changing the fact that that feeling is hurting you. You see what I mean? And I think when you allow yourself to consider that, you really let yourself go all in on this creative process. You allow yourself then to feel that pain and say, okay, I'll work with this. Now you're sitting down in the creator's bench. Now you're sitting down at your pottery wheel of your life experience and you're saying, boy, I don't like the shape of this clay right now. I'm willing to work with it though. Do you know what I mean? Like that pain, if it's a part of what it's like to be you, it's a part of the project that you're working with. And there's just this beautiful, amazing thing that happens when you allow yourself to sit down and start doing work. Start doing your work. Start responding resourcefully instead of saying, God, I wish that there was different clay here. God, and it's my fault because I should have put different clay, but I can't, and all this different stuff. When you just let yourself go to work on your experience and let yourself start responding resourcefully to what is without really having a lot of regard for what is happens to be, you just say, what is? Oh, it's this. That's my work. My work is to respond resourcefully to this. There's this exhilarating liberation that comes with that. And you find you're an incredibly competent creator and changer of reality when you allow yourself to sit down and go to work instead of talking about how you wish that what you had to go to work on was other than it was. It's an amazing feeling in and of itself. And you create a lot of the changes that you want to.
Yeah, something, I don't know, just an example that came to mind that I think is super interesting. It's like I'm really into natural birthing, like all things natural birthing. And I had a whole collection, I don't know if I still have it, of all these birth DVDs. And one of them was Orgasmic Birth. And I was like, this is bizarre. It was when I first started kind of getting into natural health, and the chiropractor I worked for at the time, she just gave me all of this stuff, and I'm watching all these DVDs, and it's like, what? Orgasmic birth? What is that? This is bizarre.
It's pretty much what it sounds like, right?
Yeah, it's that, and this is actually really interesting from the GNM perspective. And I don't know exactly all of the details, but I'm imagining that I know that the first trimester, like the first 3 months of pregnancy, the body is like sympathetic active. It's almost like it's in a conflict shock for the first 3 months, the first trimester. And then the rest of the pregnancy is more parasympathetic. So it's almost like the healing phase. And then you get partially, you get through the healing phase, and then the actual birth of the baby is the epicrisis, the epileptoid crisis, the big squeeze. And that's how, it follows like the second biological law. When you look at the chart, you're conflict active for 3 months, then you resolve the conflict, which means, okay, we're definitely having this baby. Baby grows for the, for the next 6 months, which is interesting. And I don't know, that just made me think of like biological programs and timing, because people have asked questions about timing, and I've just observed with myself like how quickly, you guys know my story about the swallowing the meatball, what a quick experience that was, but the sore throat and the repair of my throat literally took over a month for like something that was a split second. Like, why does it take so long? So you've got this conflict, of this pregnancy for 3 months. Okay, we're definitely going to have the baby. So you have, you're pregnant for another 6.5, 7 months, twice as long. And then there's the big squeeze. The fact that a woman can change and transform her relationship to the process of birthing, because culturally we're so programmed that birth is like the worst thing ever. Every movie about that anyone ever has a baby, it's just the worst, most horrible thing ever. Give me my epidural, like knock me out. I don't want to feel this. Like I hate you. Like it's horrible. And so many girls are brainwashed into thinking that this is just going to be the most horrible, awful experience of my life. My body will never be the same, and my life will be over when I have a baby. It's really toxic the way that we think about birthing. But the fact that there are people who look at birth as a totally natural thing, and that you can actually transmute the pain, like the one of these really awesome older midwife ladies who are just full of all this knowledge. It's a quote, something about like the same energy that it took to get the baby in can help get the baby out, and the fact that you can transmute this thing that's normally typically seen as horrible pain into something that could be thought of as orgasmic, I mean, that's really interesting. And don't you think that you could transmute pain or think about the pain in a different way? And with a baby, you kind of like, you at least have the time frame. You're like, okay, I know that this is going to go on for this long, and I know that, the pain, but it's short, and then there's the baby, and that is like whatever it is you're going through with your health crisis. If you're still like in that PCLA, the first half of the healing phase, where you're swollen and you're hurting and you're exhausted and you're just like win, the more that you can just kind of relax into this and know that it's coming, know that your body's got a plan, accept it, and so if you're resisting and you're like, scared and afraid of like this thing that's about to happen, whatever it might be, because some people will have an epicrisis where, they have a seizure or they have a stroke or something happens and it's a big event that's squeezing out all the edema. Your attitude about that is huge. If you're like, pins and needles, nervous and waiting, literally it'll never happen. I was thinking about resistance earlier today because I knew that we were going to be talking about this tonight, and I had the thought of those little, like those Chinese finger traps that you put your finger in that little bamboo woven thing and you're trying to pull your fingers out, and you like can actually, I remember freaking out before of like, I can't get my fingers out of this thing, and the more you pull and pull
I can't believe you would ever put your fingers in one of those.
I mean, they were just, you get them, I don't know where we got them when we were kids, but the more you pull, the more it doesn't let your fingers out. If you pull and pull and pull,
it's called a finger trap.
I know. It tightens down. But that's how it is with pain. That's how it is with this process. The more that you resist it, the more you've got this mentality of beating cancer, fighting cancer, killing cancer. I'm going to get it. We're going to do this thing, and I'm going to change my mindset so I can heal my body. Even that. And that's why my goal in all of my sessions that I do with people is like, how can we get you to chill? How can we get you to relax and tell yourself a story about what's going on right now? Assign a meaning to all of these events in your life that will allow you to move through this, allow you to get from where you are to where you want to be. Because being where you are, telling yourself this is not where I should be, this should be different, this should be other than it is, I should be different, I shouldn't have eaten that, I shouldn't have done this, and like that whole just kind of downward spiral of thinking of just things are not okay, I am not okay, that keeps you in that not okay place for a much longer time. Your ability to kind of look at where you are physically, mentally, financially, like all of the stuff that's making up what it's like to be you, and figure out, okay, just in knowing, there is a way to get to where you want to go. There's a way to get to where you want to go. Even if you can't see it, even if you don't know how you're going to get there, if you can have a thought in your mind about how you prefer things to be, how you want things to be, there's a way for you to achieve that. And that belief and that knowing, and I know it's hard. I've been editing a course all day. Steve built this just amazing course about beliefs. And basically it's like, well, how do I believe that? If I don't believe that right now, how do I get myself to believe that? Because you even saying that, it's like, yeah, that sounds really nice, but I don't believe that. And so your nice words mean nothing inside of like this experience of me, because I don't actually believe what you're saying. I want to, I'd like to, but I don't, it's just not, how do you believe something? And that's really what that course is all about. It's like practical, kind of easy, kind of backdoor ways into adopting new beliefs that are different than what you've ever believed before, but you can see how they would be resourceful. You're like, gosh, if I believed that, that would be really helpful. If I truly believed what you were saying, the thing is I don't truly believe it, so I can't accept it, and so it doesn't really operate in the moment-to-moment reality of what it's like to be me. I go back to my default beliefs because it's what I've always believed, and part of me doesn't believe what you're saying, and so that just that belief that like you can get to where you want to go from where you are, that there is a path, there is a way for you to get there. You believing that and you being able to tell yourself that story and put yourself in that place mentally and be able to kind of deny what is at this moment. Like everything that is, really, it's old news. It's old news. Your mind is the leading edge. What you're thinking about is the front lines of creation. It's calling forth what is coming next. It's informing your cells about what to do next. You know, like seriously, like your cells are on full attention all of the time, watching and say, okay, what does she need from us? What does she need from us? What does she need from us? We're doing this repair, but they're still listening. They're still listening. And if you're freaking out, if you are on high alert, if you're panicking, your body's saying, okay, let's retain some water because there's clearly something more going on here. And we're programmed, we've got this ancient biological program that says if there's panic, if there's freak out, if there's worry, if they're like scared for their life, we need to store water. And it's just what it does. It's just this old ancient language that our body speaks. And so being aware of that communication and what you're communicating to your tissues is so important, and realizing that truly, like, you relaxing, you feeling good is the way. Like, that's the path. That's the way to get to where you want to go, is feel as good as you can in this moment. And when you get to the next moment, feel as good as you can in that moment. Think about things in the maximally resourceful way that will allow you to get through where you are and get to where you want to be.
And I think that one of the big challenges for that is, especially, I mean, if you're very practiced at feeling bad or experiencing worry or resistance and suffering. What are you talking about, Sammy? What did you say something about some kids?
Oh, you were that kid saying, "Oh, it's a finger trap. Don't put your finger in there."
Oh yeah, that was me. It was the name just kind of like I think it should be named something else, like a finger spa or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
something that's gonna trick you.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, and then but the Chinese finger trap, I think you just kind of deserve what you get, right? And that includes me because I did it. I forgot what I was talking about. It totally went out. It's going to be pretty good, too. It's something that was pretty useful, and I totally forgot what it was. That's why I should make my lame jokes. Do you even remember what I was talking about?
Well, you hadn't really started talking.
I just preambled. So. What were you talking about?
Accepting, letting it be okay where you are so you can get
there
where you want to go.
I got it. Thank you. About like this, giving yourself permission, kind of authority, this capacity to, because you said with like ignoring what is. It feels almost irresponsible. Like if you've been freaked out about your health situation for a long time, or about what you think your health situation might be for a long time, it almost feels irresponsible to feel better or to feel totally better. It feels almost like I'm setting down this load, but what if carrying this load around with me is what it takes to survive? What if I don't and that was the thing for me for the longest time. It felt irresponsible to not resist aspects of my reality that I did not like, and it was almost like there was an inner, like a parent in my head or something like that, because I had no reference point growing up. I never saw anybody not resist this. I never saw anybody not get angry when this happened. And so you carry that around in your head with you. And there's a part of you, it's like a little reminder. It's like an alarm bell that you set. And it said, if it's Monday, I want to get an alarm and let me know it's Monday. If it's time to resist, I want an alarm that tells me it's time to resist so that I know. Because otherwise, how would I know when to suffer? And when you start really being audacious in it takes some audacity really to kind of look at your situation and say, you know what? I'm going to experience this in a new and different way, because it requires you to give up the illusion of security that comes with the prepackaged worldview that was imparted to you by the people that you grew up around. It requires you to throw the map out and to say, I'm going to experience this situation in a new way. I don't care that everyone I've ever encountered is freaked out about this thing, or they've always resisted and suffered over pain, and they've never, and that they kind of made fun of people who talked about different ways of, it's like, everything's fine until it's not. When it's not, you just kind of suffer and, through it. When you start to realize, that's the thing you have to relinquish, is this illusion of security, so that you can, the nice thing about it is that it's an illusion, and so you're not giving up anything, really, except for something that's nothing. When you do that, though, you become free to start consciously creating your own experience. You become free to say, okay, if I believe that I'm going to get better, what does that look like for me? What does that feel like for me? What does that change about the moment-to-moment reality of what it is like to be me? And what impact does that change on what it is like to be me have on the physical reality of this body, on the shelf life of this body, on this body's capacity to regenerate itself? Do you know what I mean? And it's like one of those things, like being ready to have good things happen without knowing exactly how they're going to happen, and being ready to have good things happen without having explicit, small detail reasons to believe, or knowledge about how it will happen, or reasons to believe that it will, because your positive expectation is useful. And there's a subtle thing, because there's a lot of people who talk about this stuff, and what you end up with are the kind of like the what people call like the Prozac smile, or like I'm Prozac positive, right? And that's that person who is afraid of being negative, and so they really try to convince themselves and everyone else that they're ultra positive about this, and inside they're terrified. And you have to respect your experience and honor your experience. If you resist the fact that you're resisting and suffering over resistance, that's just more resistance layered on, right? There's this dissociation from self and from your creative process that is so pernicious, that's so pervasive, that's so deep in the minds of us, that every time I tell you something, Melissa tells you something, you read something somewhere, you have an idea yourself, there's this inclination to scan our experience, to scan the we experience ourselves to be, and say, okay, given that, what do I have to exclude? What part of myself do I have to pretend like isn't there? What part of my experience do I have to disown? What aspect of the me that I feel myself to be do I have to kind of quash down or stifle to prevent from ruining all of this? And what we're really saying is that all of you is a part of this. It's all a part of your creative process. And again, there's that audacity thing, right? Because it's kind of a scary thing, because if you've been holding down and playing like whack-a-mole with aspects of yourself that you think is not okay, with the shadow, or whatever you'll want to call it, it feels almost like going outside naked. It almost feels like, not if someone has to put makeup on before they even get out of the bed. Like, it feels like just going out. It can't be that easy. It can't be that free. I can't be in complete control. Actually, you can. And when you begin to discover how free you are to kind of create this experience, you start creating brand new experiences, and it changes things in ways that you couldn't possibly anticipate, and it begins to sound less crazy that you could create a different experience of the same sensation. And once you've had a couple of experiences with this happening, personal reference points, you start to see that if I can change my experience of a sensation, that new experience can actually contribute to creating new sensations. It can go from pain to not pain. It can go, and it manifests in different ways. It manifests in changes in your behavior. There's all this different stuff. You send these subtle signals to yourself to relax. I mean, the process just kind of carries on. A lot of it is you just getting out of the way, really. I mean, the you that you experience yourself to be gets out of the way, and the rest of you takes care of business. That's really how I think about it. Like, everything about what I do for health and healing and productivity and all this stuff is to get me to shut up and step aside so that the rest of me can get it done. And that's just a freeing thing. But there's that audacity, because I was talking to someone yesterday about that. Like, it's going to feel scary. It's going to feel irresponsible. It's going to feel like a pie in the sky kind of thing. It's because there's this inner critic, there's this inner cynic, right? And now when you said to disregard what is, really what that amounts to functionally is to stop selectively giving your attention to the worst aspects of what is, and basically almost selecting from reality the worst things to give your attention to, and then creating a really terrible experience, and then as a result of that, magnifying that reality in your life and creating more and more and more of it. Like, when you just have that freedom to experiment with your experience, and you recognize too, I'm not going to, because there's a part of me that was really afraid that I was lulling myself into believing things so that I could basically anesthetize myself against a bad reality, right? I was kind of just comforting myself against harsh reality, and my realistic friends out there, they're being real, and it's almost like shameful for me that I've kind of copped out and I'm over here just like believing things that are positive because I couldn't cut it in the real world, and so I had to go into like the warm, fuzzy belief world. And for a while, that was kind of like what I kind of vacillated back and forth between. But then I started thinking, well, no, hang on. Belief is not a thing that I've got to it's not a cliff I have to jump off of. It's a tool that I use. And if I can believe something with the express intent of leveraging certain consequences of believing in order to create the kind of life that I want, I can work on believing this new thing and observe what believing it, the effects that it has on my experience of what it's like to be me, and watch as that experience causes new reality to kind of change in different ways. And now the interesting thing about this too is that if I'm using it as a tool, I don't have to give myself over to it. And also, if I try out believing it, I got a new, hammer, a new like saw or something like that, and I don't know how to use it, and I go and I try to use it and I don't use it well, that's trying to believe something that I don't really believe yet. I don't have to deny the fact that I don't really believe it, right? Because if you think belief is something like a cliff you've got to jump off of, and half the people in your life are saying you're going to die if you don't jump off this cliff, and the other half are saying you're going to die if you jump off this cliff, and you're kind of caught in the middle. It's a very high stakes, high pressure kind of thing. You've got to ignore what there's all sorts of dissociation from your experience that's going on. But when it's a matter of learning a tool, it's learning to use a tool, it's learning to be skilled, and it's you watching, you make yourself the measure of all things. All of a sudden, there's nothing that can happen in your experience that's the problem. I tried to believe it, and I didn't. Well, that's fine. Let's play with it. Let's see what we can do about that. Well, I kind of believe it, but when the pain gets really intense, I don't believe it anymore. And in my experience, I'm able to shift my experience on a normal day, but when my pain gets to 8 out of 10, it doesn't work anymore. You don't have to pretend like that's not true. That's okay. We'll just respond resourcefully to that. When you know that's true, when you know that there's nothing that's not okay, you free yourself up to acknowledge. And this is what acceptance really is. And this is what when acceptance is difficult. It's when I used to have this, I used to think that there were certain things that were unacceptable, right? And that's such a stupid word, right? There's nothing that's not acceptable, because all acceptance means is I'm willing to respond resourcefully to this. Acceptance is not an endorsement. Acceptance is not resignation. Acceptance isn't passive. Acceptance isn't saying, it's not a way of coping with reality. It's a way of changing reality. Acceptance is, and this is the thing for me too. If I look at let's say there's a table over here. There's not, but let's say there's a table over here and it's got a lot of dirty dishes on it, right? And I look at that and I accept the fact that there are dirty dishes there. What that looks like in terms of behavior for me is I get up, pick them up, take them to the sink and wash them. That's what acceptance looks like to me. If I resist the fact that they're there, I look over there, I groan, I say, oh Lord, I feel so guilty about the fact that they're there. I feel angry at Melissa for them being there. That's what resistance looks like. And notice reality stays the same. The dirty dishes stay there. Except to the degree that your life is changing in the direction that you want it to be changing, acceptance is present. And very often, resistance looks like bad things staying the same. Resistance looks like undesired staying the same, because I'm channeling a lot of negative energy in the direction of that thing. Whereas really, acceptance isn't like necessarily signing your name to something. It's like basically releasing the emergency brake so that you keep on flowing, keep on going, keep on changing. And it's such a funny thing. It's just a different way of thinking about it.
It is. And when you said something about being audacious and kind of going there, I'm gonna go ahead and believe, I'm gonna activate this faith that I have, and it's activating this trust for your body that you have anyways, that is always present, that because we have these narrow beams of attention, we think, oh, I've got to do this big act of trusting my body. You're already trusting it. You're already trusting the universe. You're already, there's literally, we're such control freaks. We think that our body won't keep running if I don't keep taking these supplements, if I don't keep, we feel like we're in control of this thing, that I'm doing all the right things, and so now my body's going to comply, but now I need to surrender. And this doesn't feel safe because, I've got to let this process go, and I got to stop micromanaging it, and I got to stop thinking about it all the time. I got to stop talking about it all the time.
Get your meta micromanager.
Yeah, yeah, and we try to micromanage this. Did the sun come up today? Is the sun going to come up tomorrow? Do you have anything at all to do with that? No, you don't. There is something going on here that is bigger than our conscious ability to control. And so you releasing that control, you releasing that emergency brake really is just getting with that thing. It's really putting down your weapons and letting it flow. Let your body do what it's doing. And support it and try to understand it. And that's the great thing about GNM is you're trying to understand the language of your body. We were speaking crazy different languages before, thinking that this meant that our body is attacking us, or it's doing this bad thing and it's turned on us and it's doing, it's oh, okay, I'm glad we cleared that up. So, but the default is you're already trusting your body. Your body is already doing everything to allow you this experience. To even have an experience of mistrusting your body is an act of trusting your body, because it's flowing forth from this activity called your body. And
that's such a super interesting thing. So that you think about the medical profession, let's say, and this is just kind of a thought experiment, says, and they have a very tidy explanation for this. Well, your immune system is making a mistake. It's attacking this organ. It's attacking this tissue because it thinks that it's foreign. And so basically what we have there is a situation where we believe that the body is making an error. But there's this phenomenon where we always forget to consider who's talking. You know what I mean? In that situation. So if it's plausible that the immune system attacks the body, right? Or, you know, that the one part of the body attacks another part of the body due to an information processing error, is it also possible that the psyche, or that the ego, or that the conscious mind, perhaps it's right, there is a part of the body that's an error, but it's this kind of overgrown cortical manifestation of self up here that says, oh, you know what the problem is here? The problem here is that this shouldn't be happening, and I've just got to go in here and plug these things around. And it never occurs to us that the, you know, it's like the person who's speaking is a part of the picture. Like the observer of a situation is himself a part of that situation. And that's an interesting thing, that it never enters into the mind that, you know, what if the error here, what if the bodily error here is a psychological one, in the sense that what if our perception and understanding of the thing that we call illness is the mistake? What, you know, because that's the thing, is that it's like, you know, you smell a rat, where there's smoke, there's fire, there's something going wrong in this body. Well, maybe there is something going wrong in the body. Maybe if it's sitting right up here, and it's this really front part here, it's where I is, and I is looking out, and I is saying, you know, I'm good, me is bad, and my body's part of me, and I've got to, you know, chop off that part of it. We got to, you know, take this part of that person and put them in here. You know, that maybe that's not always the case, but I think it's healthy to consider that possibility. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
and no one does, because it's invisible. And that's why, you know, people could look at GNM and call it quackery, because it's invisible, it's intangible. Your thoughts, although they make up 100% of what it's like to be you, the fact you have an experience is because weird invisible stuff happens behind your eyes and you process it. I mean, that is what all of experience is made out of, is this internal experience, but we overlook it because it's so fundamental to who we are. It is, you know, it's the background. It is the thing that allows us to do all the other things. And so because it's there, because it's just a given, we don't look at it as cause. We don't look at it as something to think about, in the sense of like, what is what I'm thinking about? How is that influencing what my body is doing? So much so that people in this, you know, very mechanistic kind of world they really think, oh no, my thoughts couldn't possibly create cancer in my body. That's crazy. But when you think about the fact that all of your experience is being derived from thoughts, from the things that you cannot physically feel or touch except in your own physical organism, it's so interesting to kind of connect back to that. And that's where, you know, you really do. You get into kind of some metaphysical, interesting stuff when you go down the path of GNM, because of the fact that you're dealing with, I mean, this energy, this stuff that goes on inside the human body, and this experience that flows out of it. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of weird. And so I hope that you guys just kind of got that picture tonight, that it's acceptance. It's allowing things to be the way that they are for now, to allow them, to accept them for now, to allow them to go where you want them to go. Like, wherever it is that you want to be, you can get there. It is possible for you. There is a way, and there is a way for you to believe that. If you don't believe it now, there is a way for you to believe it. And so just starting to entertain these ideas, just starting to, you know, just starting to learn GNM, okay, just becoming aware of different things that your body could be meaning by pain, and different ways that you could experience your pain, and just take it a step further. See if you could believe a little bit more. See if you could feel a little bit better, even if everything stays the same. Even if there's dirty dishes over there, and there's no money in the bank, and there's pain on your body, and your spouse is being a pain. I mean, just sit there and say, could I have a different experience of this? Could I have a better experience of this? And just entertaining that idea, you know, like, see what happens. See what happens when you just add an awareness that you could be experiencing things in a different way, that you could be accepting things as they are, as a means to getting where you want to go. And so that's really what we want for you, is to feel good. Anytime you watch our videos, it's all about feeling good, feeling better, you know, and having new ideas, thinking about things in new and different ways that will allow you to have a better experience. Because you having a better experience means your body getting the message, okay, things are a little bit better. She's safe, she's at ease, she's calm, okay, we can finish this healing process. And that's what we want for you, is to, wherever you are, look at it and get to where you want to go. And then when there's, bumps in the road and you're kind of off track and you're stressed out, just come back to it. And that's that constant training. And that's what I've trained myself to do. I used to be, like really neurotic and nervous and anxious and worried all of the time. And I retrained my brain to have a new set point, to have a new way that I look at things. And so, I still might have those emotions and those experiences. And if I have a pain, I might resist it for a while. But then it's like, I have the awareness. I know how to get to where I want to go from where I am. And that's one of the things I do in my private coaching, is just helping you to map that out. What does that look like for you to get from where you are to where you want to go, and building those bridges and having those breadcrumbs from this bad experience back to somewhere that you like better, and just knowing that you can always get there, so that it never feels dismal. It never feels end of the road. It never feels like things aren't ever going to get better. And that's really that, because that's a new story. That story, when you can start telling that, you really start to, turn the corner experientially, because you know that this doesn't mean this bad story that I've always been telling myself. The fact that I'm experiencing this merely means that I'm on the way to where I'm going. And so that's what we want you to just kind of let that sink in, that you can get to where you want to go. From wherever you are right now, you can get there. And really, it's a changing of your mind. It's a renewing of the way that you think about things. So thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Let us know if you need anything, if you'd like any help coaching, if you're interested in our New Beliefs course coming up. It should be ready in a few days. I'm really excited. So anything else?
I think that's it.
Good to go. We love you guys. Have a great night. We'll see you later.